Welcome to a Healthy Push podcast. I'm Shannon Jackson, former anxiety sufferer turned adventure mom and anxiety recovery coach. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. And now I help people to push past the stuff that I used to struggle with. Each week, I'll be sharing real and honest conversations along with actionable and practical steps that you can take to help you push past your anxious thoughts, the symptoms, panic, and fears. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Okay, let's chat about some anxiety tips, tools, and hacks I personally don't like or recommend. And I have to say, you might be surprised by some of these, but don't worry, I'm going to explain why I don't like or recommend these things so that you have an understanding, which I think will help to give you some aha moments. So I just have to say it. There's a lot of really terrible anxiety advice on social media and on the internet, like really bad. And it's often the really bad advice that goes viral and you see get repeated over and over again. Like if I had a freaking dollar for every time I saw someone suggest ice cubes for panic attacks, it makes me cringe. And I'm sure you've seen some of these videos with just really bad advice, and maybe you've even tried some of this advice. And there is no shame in that. If social media was what it is today, back when I was struggling, I'm pretty sure I would have tried any and all of it. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so hard for me to see this advice getting in front of so many people, because it's just selling people on this idea that you can do these quick things and just get rid of anxiety, which is not the case. And of course, people are trying all the things because they're struggling and they're suffering and they just desperately want to feel better. And also too, sometimes there are good tips or tools being suggested, but there's just no real context to what's being shared. And this is another unfortunate part of social media. It's just a lot of short form content without a whole lot of explanation, which just leaves people trying things out of desperation to get relief without really understanding why it's being recommended or how to even use it in a way that's actually helpful. So people end up trying these things, not getting any relief, and ending up sometimes even feeling worse, and then feeling bad and beating themselves up and convincing themselves that they're the problem or they're broken when these things aren't helpful, when it really has nothing to do with them and instead has everything to do with the terrible advice that they're being given or just the lack of information that they're being given. So anyway, I could go on and on and on, but that's enough of me ranting about social media and the internet. So let's get into it and talk about some tips, tools, and hacks I personally don't like or recommend. So this first one really drives me nuts, and I kind of already mentioned it, and I figured this is just the best place to start. Using ice cubes, cold water, sour candies, or similar things in moments of anxiety or panic. I have so many problems with this one, and I'm sure you might be able to guess why, but let's talk about it. So the basic idea is that by using something cold or sour, you're going to quickly stimulate your vagus nerve, which can help reduce anxiety in the moment because your vagus nerve activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system that's responsible for calming the body. So if you've ever tried this, I'm sure you've seen it can, quote, work. It essentially pulls your attention away from the sensations and the symptoms and averts your attention elsewhere. But let's talk about why this actually doesn't work. So my two big issues with this hack is this. The first, you can quickly find yourself compulsively using ice cubes, cold packs, cold water, or sour items or other things whenever you feel anxious and find yourself pretty dependent on these things. And let's be real, it's just kind of silly because carrying these things with you isn't really practical, right? And when you can't carry them with you or you forget them, you can then experience a ton of anxiety surrounding that. So it's like this full-on dependence. And being dependent on something outside of yourself, especially in anxious moments, right, is not how long-term healing happens. In fact, being dependent on things outside of yourself chips away at your self-trust and your confidence, just creates more anxiety, which is everything that we don't want. So the second issue that I have with this hack is that you might find that using them gives you this short-term relief, right? But unfortunately, the anxiety just keeps popping up. Like it doesn't take it away. And this is because you're not getting to the root of why you're experiencing the anxiety, and you're not actually working to create a healthy response and relationship with it, which that relationship hugely happens when you allow anxiety in. You make space for it and let yourself feel it. So using these things is causing you to just play offense and is preventing you from feeling what you're feeling, aka the anxiety, which we know the more you try to push away certain feelings, the more you're going to feel them. So it's really important to let yourself see that you can feel the anxiety. You don't need to reach for all the things. You don't need to use the ice cubes, the cold water, the sour gummies, and you are actually capable of handling the feelings. So I wish I could delete all the ice cube videos on social media and the internet, but that's just not possible. So here's my advice. Rather than using ice cubes, cold packs, candies, whatever it is, I'd really love to encourage you to practice letting yourself feel anxious without reaching for all the things to try to make the feelings go away. And you might be thinking, well, Shannon, how the heck do I just let myself feel? Like, how do I do that? What does it look like practically? And this is something that I teach in all of my courses and in my program. We go into depth because there are very practical and simple ways to do this. It's not complicated. All right. The next anxiety tip I don't love is challenging your anxious thoughts and feelings. So this can look a variety of different ways. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Maybe someone has done an exercise with you to assist you in challenging your thoughts and feelings. And this often looks like taking a fear that you have and asking yourself or someone asking you, well, what's the likelihood of this happening? And if you've been to therapy, I'm sure you've experienced this. I know I've been there. Sitting on a couch feeling so freaking frustrated because I knew where this exercise was going. Like I knew the intention. It was trying to get me to see that what I feared was so unlikely to happen, or even if it did happen, the worst case scenario wouldn't be so bad. But the problem with this exercise is that it's trying to talk logic into anxiety. And we know anxiety does not speak in logic, right? Like you can know, like really truly know something is unlikely to happen, even highly unlikely to happen, and even believe it, like it's not going to happen. But when you're feeling anxious and panicky, all of that logic goes right out the window because that's how our brains are designed. And soon enough, you find yourself going along with all the worst case scenarios and you're like, yep, all of it's going to happen. I'm doomed. Everything is just the worst case thing is going to happen. And this is because anxiety is mostly based in the future, right? For things that haven't happened yet. It's often coming up with all the what ifs, the coulds, the mights. And so when you try to challenge your way out of your anxious thinking and feelings, you tend to just drive yourself nuts because no amount of logic makes the anxiety disappear. It's like, just believe it, right? You know it's not going to happen, but your brain's like, yeah, but what if? Right? So challenging your thoughts in this way is not only kind of silly, it honestly just makes you feel ridiculous for even having the fears that you do. And it just puts more attention and focus on them and unfortunately heightens them. So another way challenging your thoughts is often approached is by replacing, quote, bad anxious thoughts with positive thoughts. And you can probably assume why I don't like this at all. It's emphasizing that your anxious thoughts are problematic or bad, right? Which just isn't the case. They're just thoughts like all of your other thoughts. But the problem is that you're giving the anxious thoughts so much special attention. You are highlighting them, you're calling them out, you're making them way more important than they are. So I don't recommend challenging your thoughts in this way either. Replacing thoughts is not what we want to do. So generally speaking, the biggest reason why I don't like challenging your thoughts is because we tend to just feed the thoughts and give anxiety even more attention, which is the opposite of what we want to be doing. So rather than try to challenge your thoughts, I instead teach my students how to respond to your thoughts and feelings in healthy ways, like acknowledging them, allowing them to be, and reframing your thoughts. Reframing your thoughts is so helpful. Rather than challenging, rather than replacing, reframing is really a big helpful tool. And it's way more helpful than trying to use logic or replacement. Okay, the next one, and you probably won't be surprised by this one. I really don't like the advice that tells you to just use CBD, gummies, oils, or other related products. Here's the thing. We all want an easy and quick fix to feel better. Trust me, I get it. Back when I was struggling, I bought these, quote, calming gummies. I honestly think on the front of this little tin, it looked like an Altoids tin, and I think it said relief gummies. And it promised this quick anxiety relief. And this was back before CBD products were even really a thing. I honestly don't think these gummies had anything in them besides sugar and gelatin, because I don't even think I would have taken anything like a CBD product because I would have had anxiety about that. But spoiler alert, I ate a ton of these things and they never did a dang thing. And I even remember on my way to therapy one time, I was in downtown, like a city, and I remember walking to therapy and literally popping these gummies and thinking, what the hell am I doing? And it's kind of funny now, but it definitely wasn't at the time. So here's my take. CBD, gummies, oils, these things can be supportive in some way, and maybe they are to you, but they cannot fix your relationship with yourself or your relationship with anxiety. So if you're using these things, but you're not doing the deeper work, you're not allowing yourself to make space for anxiety, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to experience the long-term healing that you so desperately want. It's also like the ice cubes, right? And sour candies. You can develop a dependence on these things and be convinced that you need them and that they're helping. But it's like, are they really? Because typically we use these things over and over and over, and we never slow down to say, what is this actually helpful? Like, is the anxiety continuing to pop up? Like, is this doing what I think it's doing? Because if you aren't getting at the root of the problem and truly creating that healthy relationship with anxiety, these things are not doing nearly as much as you think that they are. And you're probably giving them so much credit when they really don't deserve any credit. So instead of desperately seeking out and trying all the quick fixes and easy fixes and hacks, really invest in some of the self-care basics that will help you a ton. Things like slowing down, practicing mindfulness, moving your body, eating nourishing foods, setting boundaries, asking for help, and actually receiving it. Like, these things will be so incredibly helpful and supportive. And instead of using the ice cubes, the sour packs, the gummies, the CBD, the oils in moments of anxiety to try to make the anxiety go away, practice really making that space for the anxious feelings and letting yourself be with them. That will be so much more helpful. Okay, the next one is journaling your anxious thoughts and feelings. I really don't like this one. And I just have to throw this disclaimer in here. I'm not hating on journaling as a whole. I actually quite like some forms of journaling, but journaling anxious thoughts and feelings has never been my jam, and it's not something I recommend, and I'm going to tell you why. So the idea is we get your anxious thoughts out, right? We get them out of your head, we get them on paper, let's write them down, let's get rid of them. If it only worked that way, right? Like, oh, I just write it down and I'm going to get rid of it. Here's the thing. Lots and lots of people who struggle with anxiety disorders are thinkers, and oftentimes deep thinkers. They're analyzers, problem solvers, creatives. Maybe I'm speaking to you right now, and don't worry, you're not alone. I'm in this boat too. So when you tell someone who is already very much in their head and a thinker to write down their thoughts and their feelings and even their experiences on a regular basis, they become even more fixated on their thoughts and feelings. They become even more stuck on them and even more scared by them. They often find themselves trying to analyze their thoughts and feelings, trying to figure them out, and also shaming themselves for the thoughts that they're having. Simply put, like, journaling your anxious thoughts and feelings can cause you to be even more in your head, which is what we don't want. And we don't want to be so focused on anxiety and giving it so much attention. So something I like rather than journaling your anxious thoughts is to journal your wins, aka when you're out there facing anxiety and willingly taking it with you, capture those moments. Capture the moments that you push yourself, no matter how it goes. Capture the progress. Let yourself truly acknowledge these moments to celebrate them and celebrate yourself. And then on the hard days, you can go back and look in this journal and say, No, we're not going down the rabbit hole of, are we healing? Are we going to get there? Is it ever going to happen? Oh my gosh, we're going backwards. And you can pause, slow down and say, nope, we're not going there. I am making progress. I've got this. And journaling in this way will be so much more helpful and motivating, I promise you. And this is another thing that we do in my Panic to Peace program. And I teach my students how to do this in a way that's fun and helpful because it is so incredibly helpful. Okay, the last one, and I despise this one. I don't really know why it would ever be a tip, but it often is, to distract yourself when you feel anxious. And the advice that tells you to distract yourself by scrolling your phone or by calling someone or playing a game, this can actually be really harmful because you're not letting yourself feel the anxiety. And the truth is, if you're always finding yourself trying to distract yourself from feeling, you're going to keep feeling the things that you don't want to feel. And yes, of course, we all distract ourselves. I'm not saying you're going to walk through life, right? Walk through anxious moments, never distract. Distraction is a natural, healthy, and perfectly okay thing to do. But I'm more so talking about the type of distraction that you do when you feel anxious and you're like instantly reaching for something, or you're just constantly keeping yourself distracted. You're always on the phone, you're always watching something, listening to something, talking to people because you never want to slow down and let yourself feel. And this type of distraction, always resisting the uncomfortable feelings, never letting yourself be with them, and always seeking an escape is so problematic. So instead of immediately jumping to distract yourself in anxious moments, the next time you're feeling anxious, see if you can slow down and just give yourself 10, 15, 20 seconds to see if you can let yourself just be with the discomfort. And yeah, it's not going to be pleasant. But this is the stuff that leads to long-term healing, which is what you want, right? This is why you're listening to me. And this is a big point I wanted to get across in this episode. You want long-term healing, not short-term relief. And a lot of the anxiety recovery advice out there is just selling you on this idea that short-term relief is the answer. Like it's going to get you to where you want to be. And it's just not true. Trust me, I know how frustrating, defeating, and hard the recovery journey is, but you'll make things so much harder on yourself if you keep chasing after short-term relief. This is a huge reason why I struggled for so long. I was always chasing that quick, just give me the relief, just give me the quick, easy fix. I don't want to do the harder work. So please, please don't do this to yourself. It is so not worth it. So I want you to ask yourself and be honest with yourself when you're out there viewing content, reading things, trying things, and really ask yourself, is this going to lead to long-term healing? Or is this just another short-term relief tip? Because oftentimes when you get honest with yourself, you know what you're trying or investing your time in isn't actually helpful. We want long-term healing. That's what you're here for. And I always tell my students, I know the healing journey feels slow. It feels like it's never going to happen, but that slow healing is really what helps it all to stick. That slow healing is really what leads to that long-term peace, freedom, joy. It really prevents those roller coaster moments, right? Of a couple months I'm good and now I'm not good and I'm good again and now I'm not good. Really investing. Sometimes it's going to feel slow. Sometimes it's going to feel like nothing's happening, like you're not making any progress, but it is all happening. And you just have to sometimes have freaking blind faith. It's happening. All right. Until next time, my friend, keep taking healthy action. I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Healthy Push. If you want more, head on over to ahealthypush.com for the show notes and lots more tips, tools, and inspiration that will support your recovery. And if you're hoping for me to cover a certain topic, be sure to join my Instagram community at A Healthy Push and let me know in the comments what you want to hear next.